The large round table made of pear wood in the Fu family's old residence was brightly lit. This should have been the Fu family's quarterly banquet, symbolizing the stability and dignity of a top-tier wealthy family. The air was filled with the savory sweetness of matsutake chicken soup, along with an unmistakable arrogance known as pedigree. I sat to Fu Hanjing's right, my back straight as a rod, my nails digging into the tender flesh of my palms, because across from me, in the seat that should have been for a member of the Fu family, sat Lin Xiaoye. She is the new secretary hired by Fu Hanjing. At the moment, she is wearing a lilac silk off-shoulder gown, the cut of which looks extremely familiar. I glance down at the cheongsam of the same color I am wearing and sneer inwardly. It was a creation by a master designer from a Sotheby's auction, one of only 2 pieces in the world. The one Lin Xiaoye is wearing was originally stored in my wardrobe. Intended to be worn for Fu Hanjing on our 3rd wedding anniversary next month. Han Zheng, Xiaoye is a clever child. She must have been a great help to you with those recent overseas mergers and acquisitions, right, Mrs. Fu set down her silver chopsticks, a smile that could be called open-minded gracing her aged face, though her gaze subtly drifted toward my flat stomach. Fu Hanjing was leisurely peeling a shrimp, his slender, jade-like fingers gleaming coldly under the light. Without looking up, his voice was low and clear, like a shard of ice that never melts. Quite spirited, much better than those ladies who only know how to have afternoon tea. This statement is a public slap in my face. Lin Xiaoye lowered her head shyly, her voice as faint as a mosquito's hum. You flatter me, Mr. Fu. It's all thanks to Sister Shen's guidance. She always encourages me to help out more so she can focus less on household chores. What a distraction from household matters. The eyes of all the elders in the room instantly turned playful, and several sisters-in-law had even begun whispering among themselves. In their eyes, I, the marriage tool of the fallen Shen family, was probably already on the verge of being kicked out. I watched as Fu Hanjing casually placed the peeled shrimp into Lin Xiaoye's dish. At that moment, I heard the sound of something in my mind completely snapping. For 3 years, I cooked for him, kept a light on for him late into the night, and even used all the overseas connections left by my grandfather to help him break into the European market. In the end, in his eyes, I was nothing but a burden who only knew how to drink afternoon tea. I suddenly burst out laughing. In this banquet hall so quiet that only the clinking of cutlery could be heard, my laughter seemed particularly abrupt, even somewhat jarring. Ruorbing, what are you laughing at, old Mrs. Fu frowned and tapped the table in displeasure. At a family banquet, one must observe proper decorum. I slowly set down my wine glass and stood up. The aged dry red wine left streaks of blood-like traces on the sides of the glass. I didn't look at the arrogant Fu Hanjing but instead scanned the Fu family members seated around the table. I'm laughing because this meal is truly amusing. I walked behind Lin Xiaoye and gently placed my hand on her shoulder. She flinched slightly, like a startled white lotus. Secretary Lin, is this dress comfortable to wear? Lin Xiaoye's face paled, and she looked at Fu Hanjing as if pleading for help. Sister Shen, I don't know what you're talking about. This is a welcome gift from President Fu for my new job. A welcome gift? I raised an eyebrow and glanced at Fu Hanjing. President Fu is truly generous. So generous that he casually gives away his wife's custom-made jewelry to a talented subordinate. Fu Hanjing finally set down his utensils. He turned his head, his deep, pond-like eyes fixed on me with a hint of warning. Shen Ruorbing, that's enough. If you have something to say it at home. Don't make a scene here. Home, I repeated the word, feeling nothing but irony. Is that place your home, or is it Secretary Lin's temporary dormitory? Fu Hanjing, do you think I, Shen Ruorbing, am the kind of fool who would deceive myself just to keep the title of Mrs. Fu? The entire room was deathly silent. Fu Hanjing's face turned ashen inch by inch. The sign that he was about to erupt in anger. He had always prided himself on being in control of everything and hated nothing more than someone challenging his authority. Shen Ruorbing, sit down. His voice dropped an octave, carrying a chilling coldness. I didn't sit. Instead, I pulled out a neatly stacked set of documents from the Hermes handbag I was holding. They were something I had just retrieved from the notary office that afternoon. Since all the elders are here, it's the perfect time to bear witness. I slammed the documents onto the Lazy Susan. The glass turntable creaked, sending the stack of papers right in front of Madame Fu. At the top of the page, for bold characters were startling. Divorce agreement. Tomorrow at 10 in the morning, we'll meet at the Civil Affairs Bureau. I spoke each word deliberately, my voice as clear and crisp as the clinking of jade, echoing through the empty restaurant. Consider this meal my treat. Shun Ruobing's farewell to all of you. From now on, whether the Fu family prospers or falls, whether the one sleeping beside you, Fu Hanjing, is a person or a ghost, it has nothing to do with me. Shun Ruobing. Fu Hanjing abruptly stood up, the chair behind him emitting a sharp screech from the sudden movement, his originally pale face now flushed with an eerie redness, a sign of his blood pressure spiking from extreme anger. Do you have any idea what you're saying? Without the Fu family? Who do you think you are? Who I am? You'll soon find out. I flashed him a radiant smile, one brimming with a sharpness and boldness I hadn't shown in 3 years. I turned to look at Lin Xiaoye, who was still feigning pitifulness, leaned down, and whispered in her ear so only the two of us could hear, "This dress is a knockoff. The real one is in the shredder in my bedroom. Since you like picking up trash, I'll give you this man as well." Lin Xiaoye's expression instantly froze. I straightened up, looked at Mrs. Fu, who was sitting at the head of the table trembling with anger, and gave a slight bow. "Grandma, this is the last time I'll call you that. Thank you for the rules you taught me over these 3 years. They made me realize that in the Fu family, there is only profit, no humanity. So, the part of the profit that belongs to me, I'll take every last bit of it." "You, how dare you?" The old lady slammed the table and stood up. I paid no more attention to the commotion behind me. Fu Hanjing rushed forward, trying to grab my wrist, but I deftly sidestepped to avoid him, stumbling from the momentum. It was the first time in his life he had ever been so disheveled. "Honey, what are you saying? Have you lost your mind?" he roared behind me, his tone carrying a hint of barely noticeable panic. Without looking back, I walked out of the restaurant and into the night. The wind outside was chilly, yet it left me feeling more clear-headed than ever before. I know this is just the beginning. Fu Hanjing thinks I'm just a canary dependent on him, but he forgets that although the Shun family has fallen, the blood of a merchant still runs in the veins of a Shun daughter. These 3 years, I wasn't just playing housekeeper, I was inside the Fu Corporation, personally digging a foundation deep enough to collapse his entire empire. The black Bentley sped through the heavy rain, the atmosphere inside the car suffocatingly oppressive. Fu Hanjing sat in the back seat, his face, usually unflappable even in the face of disaster, now as dark as if it could drip with water. He clutched the divorce agreement I had thrown on the dining table, his knuckles turning white from the force. Back to Cloud Peak Villa, he ordered the driver coldly, each word seeming to be squeezed out from between his teeth. At this moment, I am sitting in the minimalist living room of the Cloud Peak Villa. This house was once arranged by my own hands. The placement of every piece of furniture, the tone of every light, once carried my fantasies of a home, but now, in my eyes, it is nothing more than a cold, empty shell labeled with luxury. The door was violently pushed open, slamming against the wall with a loud crash. Fu Hanjing stormed in, bringing a chill with him. The sound of his leather shoes on the marble floor hurried and chaotic. He slammed the stack of agreements beside the tea tree essential oil diffuser, looking down at me from above. "Shun Ruobing, have you finished the farce at the family banquet? Know when to stop. This is my last bit of patience for you." I set down my coffee cup, not even lifting an eyelid, and pointed to the 3 suitcases neatly lined up in the entryway. "Putting on a show? You flatter yourself, Mr. Fu. I've already packed my things, taking only my personal belongings. As for the joint assets from our 3 years of marriage, you can take your time to sort them out." Shun Ruobing. He suddenly leaned forward. His hands braced on the armrests of the sofa on either side of me, trapping me entirely within his shadow. "What on earth are you making such a fuss about? Is it because of Lin Xiaoye?" "I've already explained, that was for work. If you think that gown wasn't suitable, tomorrow I'll have this season's haute couture collection delivered to you, and you can pick whatever you like." I met his deep, yet utterly cold eyes and suddenly felt it was all absurdly ridiculous. "Fu Hanjing, do you think I'm bargaining with you? Do you think I'm threatening you with divorce just to get you to buy me clothes?" I pushed his shoulder aside, stood up, and pulled out a long-prepared asset assessment report from under the coffee table. "These are the 5 core projects you've invested in overseas over the past 3 years, including the deep-sea light semiconductor plan you're so proud of." I pointed at the cross-shareholding chart in the report. my tone as steady as if I were delivering a performance review. I regret to inform you that, as your personal financial advisor and legal representative, I have spent over 1,000 days and nights using your neglect of your trophy wife to complete a legal asset transfer. Fu Hanjing's pupils suddenly contracted. He snatched the report and quickly flipped through it. Just then, the doorbell at the entrance rang. The person who walked in was Jiyu Yang. He was wearing a well-tailored grey suit, and his eyes behind the gold-rimmed glasses carried a shrewdness and aloofness typical of the elite class. He was the most famous commercial lawyer in the capital and also my childhood best friend, Shun Ruobing. Ruobing, all the procedures are ready. Jiyu Yang nodded at me, then turned to look at Fu Hanjing, who was frozen in place, a professional smile curling at the corner of his mouth. Mr. Fu, I've long heard of you. I am MS, Shun's representative lawyer. Regarding the division of your marital assets, MS, Shun proposes to relinquish all shares and properties of the Fu family's old residence. She only wants one thing. Fu Hanjing stared fixedly at a line on the report, his voice hoarse. The actual control of Galaxy Capital, Shun Ruobing. That's the core financing channel of the Fu Group. When did you change the legal representative to yourself? During the week you took Lin Xiaoye on a business trip to the Maldives, I replied calmly. While you were busy celebrating her birthday on the beach, I was negotiating with the boards of those offshore companies. Fu Hanjing, you forgot even though the Shun family went bankrupt, the old subordinates my grandfather left me aren't all gone yet. You've been scheming against me. Fu Hanjing staggered back a step, his face filled with disbelief. In his eyes, I had always been a gentle, quiet, and virtuous wife who only studied tea ceremonies and flower arranging. This isn't scheming, it's risk management. I walked up to him, reached out to straighten his slightly messy tie, just as I had done every morning for the past 3 years. Only this time, there was not a trace of warmth in my eyes. Fu Hanjing, you think too highly of yourself, believing that women are merely decorative in the business world, so you naturally assumed that as long as you gave me enough pocket money, I would forever wait for you in that empty house. Unfortunately, you miscalculated. I won't divorce. He suddenly reached out and grabbed my wrist with a terrifyingly strong grip. Shun Ruobing, you can take all these things, but I will never sign. You are a member of the Fu family in life, and you will be a ghost of the Fu family in death. Mr. Fu, we live in a society governed by the rule of law. Illegal detention and forced marriage are serious crimes. Jiyu Yang stepped forward unhurriedly and handed a court summons to Fu Hanjing, MS. Shun has already applied for a separation order. If you refuse to sign, we will enter a 2-year litigation period. During this time, due to the special structure of Galaxy Capital, all of Fu Corporation's cash flow will be frozen. Do you think Fu Corporation's shareholders can wait for you for 2 years? Fu Hanjing's face turned from pale to ashen, then back again. He looked at me as if seeing the woman before him for the first time. To leave me, you would rather destroy Fu Corporation. His voice trembled. It wasn't me who destroyed the Fu family, it was you. You pushed a qualified partner to the opposite side. I pulled my wrist free, took the handle of the suitcase, and took one last look at this living room filled with memories. Fu Hanjing, the Yuyang branch under your name. The legal representative is Lin Xiaoye, right? That's the love nest you gave her. What a pity. All the company's debts are now in the hands of Xinghe Capital. Tomorrow morning, I will initiate the debt recovery process. If you care about her, remember to help her fill that tens of millions of yuan hole as soon as possible. I pulled my suitcase and, accompanied by Jiyu Yang, walked out of the large flat villa without looking back. Behind me came the sound of a vase shattering, along with Fu Hanjing's suppressed roar. Outside, the heavy rain continued. But the air was exceptionally fresh. I got into Jiyu Yang's car, closed my eyes, and let out a long sigh of relief. Feeling good, Jiyu Yang asked as he started the car, handing me a piece of chocolate. It's only just begun. Chewing the slightly bitter chocolate, I watched the Fu family's corporate logos whizzing past outside the car window, my gaze as sharp as a blade. I want him to understand that the female strength he looks down on the most is enough to overturn the entire empire he takes such pride in. The morning sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Fu Group's top-floor conference room, casting a cold, mirror-like sheen over the 10-meter-long mahogany table. The atmosphere in the conference room was so tense that even the sound of breathing was clearly audible. Fu Hanjing sat at the head of the table. His eyes bloodshot from a sleepless night, the first time in his life over the past 48 hours that he had truly understood what it meant to be stretched thin. The core cash flow of the Fu Group had been frozen, suppliers from several major projects were already clamoring downstairs, and the board of directors, which he had always regarded as his own backyard, was facing unprecedented scrutiny. President Fu. If we can't secure the endorsement of Galaxy Capital for this overseas capital injection negotiation, the other party won't sign the agreement, said Uncle Wang, a veteran of the Fu Group, his voice tinged with anxiety. The proposal prepared by Secretary Lin is full of holes and simply won't catch their eye. Standing behind Fu Hanjing, Lin Xiaoye looked pale, biting her lower lip tightly. She clutched the proposal that had been criticized as worthless, her voice trembling with tears. I'm sorry, I didn't expect the other party's requirements to be so professional. I thought we could just follow the previous template. Enough. Fu Hanjing's voice sounded as if it had been dredged from an ice cellar. He glanced toward the door, his eyes betraying a sense of urgency and anticipation that even he hadn't noticed. At that moment, the heavy conference room door was pushed open by two bodyguards in black suits. The crisp sound of high heels approached from afar, each step seeming to tread on everyone's heartstrings. I was dressed in a sharply tailored white suit, my long hair neatly tied up at the back, and a phoenix brooch inlaid with a top-grade red diamond pinned to my chest. Behind me followed a professional team of 8 people, each carrying a briefcase printed with the logo of Polaris Investment Bank. Shun Ruobing. Fu Hanjing suddenly stood up, his eyes brimming with astonishment at that moment. What are you doing here? I walked straight to the seat opposite him, which was originally occupied by the biggest competitor of the Fu family. I sat down gracefully, and the assistant behind me immediately pulled out the chair for me and set up the laptop. Mr. Fu, it's been a while. I slightly raised my eyes, my expression so calm as if there had never been 3 years of day and night together between us, let alone that decisive family banquet. Allow me to introduce myself, Shun Ruobing, Executive Partner of the Asia-Pacific region at Zenith Investment Bank. Today, I am here on behalf of the investor to discuss the acquisition. Oh no, to discuss the life-saving capital injection. You, Fu Hanjing's voice caught in his throat as he stared at me intently. Zenith Investment Bank, that barbarian fund that swept through Europe last year, specializing in cleaning up the messes of wealthy families. You're the one behind it, Sister Shun. Aren't you deliberately making things difficult for Hanjing? Lin Xiaoye couldn't help but jump in, trying to break the tension with her usual soft tone. If you still love Hanjing, why come back to watch his downfall in this way? What good would it do you if the Fu family collapses? I turned my head, my gaze cutting across Lin Xiaoye's deceptively innocent face like a sharp blade. Secretary Lin, this is a decision-making venue for a company with an annual output of hundreds of billions. Not the set of your clumsy palace drama. I closed my laptop, my tone icy. Every investment from Zenith Investment Bank is based on big data and business logic. As for the benefits, Fu Corporation's stock price is currently at a historic low. I'm taking advantage of the situation. Oh no, I mean buying the dip. Isn't that the best kind of business? Shun Ruobing, are you really going to be this cold with me? Fu Hanjing's voice trembled slightly, carrying a hint of humility I had never heard from him before. Business is business, President Fu. I looked to the other end of the table, where Zhao Feng, the head of Zhao Corporation, Fu Corporation's archrival, was eyeing me with a lecherous and malicious gaze. Miss Shun, since we're discussing investment, it's better to talk with us than with the Fu Group. Zhao Feng leered and slid a document across the table. The Fu Group is just an empty shell now, if you agree. Zhao Corporation is willing to offer a higher premium as long as Miss Shun honors us with a casual dinner tonight. Fu Hanjing's fist clenched tightly under the table, his knuckles emitting a faint crack. I calmly took a sip of coffee, then gestured to Jiyu Yang behind me. Mr. Zhao, rather than dinner, I think you should be more concerned about this. Jiyu Yang tossed a sealed document in front of Zhao Feng. The evidence of Zhao Corporation evading taxes over the past 5 years by inflating input tax credits is right here. Before returning to China, MS, Shun has already filed a real name report with the State Taxation Administration. By my estimate, the tax inspection team should have already entered your finance office. Zhao Feng's smile froze on his face. With trembling hands, he opened the document, and his complexion instantly turned ashen. You crazy woman. What good does this do for you? Zhao Feng slammed the table and stood up. The benefit is that the potential threat from the Fu Group has been eliminated, and its valuation can only be maximized in my hands. I didn't even bother to look at him. Get out, now, this conference room belongs to me and Mr. Fu. Zhao Feng was escorted out by the bodyguards in a humiliating manner. In the conference room, only the Fu family members and my team remained. Lin Xiaoye seemed to have been frightened out of her wits, shrinking into a corner and not daring to make a sound. Now, we can talk. I turned on the projector, and a series of complex equity penetration charts appeared on the screen. Fu Hanjing, I can inject capital into your company and even unfreeze the liquidity of Xinghe Capital. But I have 3 conditions. Fu Hanjing stared at the screen, which displayed an ambition and talent belonging to Shen Ruobing that he had never seen before. First, Lin Xiaoye is to be immediately removed from the Fu Corporation. And her dereliction of duty must be reported within the industry. No, Han Zheng, Lin Xiaoye cried out in terror. Fu Hanjing didn't even turn his head, just stared at me intently. Fine, and the second, Fu Corporation must cede 20% of its voting rights to Zenith Investment Bank, and I have the authority to veto any of your non-operational expenditures exceeding 50 million. Fu Hanjing closed his eyes. This was like putting a shackle around his neck. But he had no choice. The lifeline of Fu Corporation was now in my hands. I'll sign, he said hoarsely. Third, I stood up, looking down at the man who had once controlled my life. From today onward, all contracts for Fu Corporation's international projects must be personally reviewed by me, because your judgment really isn't that great. As I looked at Lin Xiaoye's desperate gaze and Fu Hanjing's extremely complex expression, I didn't feel the anticipated thrill of revenge. Instead, I experienced a sense of lightness, as if a butterfly had just emerged from its cocoon. When I walked out of the conference room, Fu Hanjing chased after me and grabbed my arm at the elevator entrance. Ruobing, did you do all of this just for the sake of profit? I gracefully brushed his hand aside and pressed the elevator's down button. Mr. Fu, 3 years ago, when I gave up everything to cook for you, you took it for granted. Now that I strategize and plan for you, you think I'm scheming. In truth, you've never changed, it's me who has. I finally understand that rather than begging for you to look back at me, it's better to make you only able to gaze at my back. The elevator doors slowly closed, cutting off his dejected figure in another world. At the charity auction gala, the scene was dazzling, with scattered diamond-like lights refracting dizzying arcs between champagne glasses. This is the annual gala of Beijing's elite social circle, and also the most brutal social arena. As I entered the venue on Jiyu Yang's arm, the previously noisy crowd fell silent for a moment. I was wearing a dark green velvet backless gown, a color commanding enough to dominate the entire room. The emerald necklace around my neck shimmered faintly under the lights, perfectly mirroring my current state of mind: cold, hard, expensive, and flawless. Look, is that Shen Ruobing? I heard she took away Fu Group's core project, and she still dares to show her face. What, Shen Ruobing? She's now CEO Shen of Zenith Investment Bank. Even Fu Hanjing has to watch his step around her. The hushed whispers surged like a tide, but I remained unperturbed. That was until a jarring shade of magenta appeared at the far end of my line of sight. Lin Xiaoye. She actually hasn't been completely kicked out by Fu Hanjing yet. Or rather, she's making a desperate last stand. Dressed in an extremely flamboyant manner, she was clinging to Fu Hanjing's arm. Although she had been removed from the company, she had managed to slip in as his private companion. Her gaze toward me was filled with intense hatred, but the moment it met Fu Hanjing's slightly distant eyes, it instantly transformed into a look of utter grievance. Ruobing, you're here. Upon seeing me, Fu Hanjing almost instinctively shook off Lin Xiaoye's hand and took a step forward. His suit was slightly wrinkled, though he still looked handsome and imposing. That air of effortless control he always carried had begun to show cracks. President Fu, in public, it's more appropriate to address each other by our professional titles. I nodded politely, not lingering, and walked straight toward the VIP seats in the front row. My best friend, Su Man, a top actress, was fanning herself with a feathered fan and winking at me. She leaned in and whispered in my ear, Lin Xiaoye brought a big move tonight. She had someone get her a set of blue diamond jewelry from the black market, supposedly worn by Marie Antoinette, hoping to show off in front of the president of the Princess Foundation and clean up her image as a workplace newbie. I sneered, the black market, with her taste, that's exactly where she belongs. The auction officially began. The first few items were unremarkable, until the set of blue diamond jewelry provided by Lin Xiaoye came on stage. This set of blue diamond eternal tears has a starting bid of 8 million. The auctioneer's impassioned voice rang out. Lin Xiaoye stood up gracefully, looking particularly pitiful under the spotlight. This set of jewelry is from my personal collection. I hope to do my part for out-of-school girls in impoverished areas. This is also what Han Zheng often teaches me, to have a heart full of great love. Her words not only established her persona but also subtly showcased her affection. Many wealthy ladies in the audience, unaware of the truth, began nodding in approval. Fu Hanjing frowned, seemingly unaware, but for the sake of the Fu family's reputation, he did not refute her. When the price was raised to 12 million, he even had to raise his paddle to help Lin Xiaoye hold the scene. 20 million. I raised my paddle with an air of nonchalance. The entire hall erupted in an uproar. Fu Hanjing suddenly turned to look at me, his expression complex. 25 million. Lin Xiaoye grew anxious. She knew that if this item was snatched away by me, her plan to clear her name would be completely ruined. She tugged at Fu Hanjing's sleeve, her voice trembling with tears. Hanjing, that was my heartfelt intention to do charity. We can't let Sister Shen, President Shen, take it away. Fu Hanjing gritted his teeth and raised the paddle again. 30 million. I smiled faintly and turned to look at a stern-looking foreign elder sitting in the corner. He was the honorary president of the International Jewelry Appraisal Association and also a distinguished guest of the foundation tonight. Mr. Fu is truly generous. However, before the deal is finalized, I have a question. I stood up, my voice clear and bright, ensuring that everyone could hear. As far as I know, the genuine set of blue diamond jewelry is currently on display in the special exhibition hall of the Louvre. The set in Miss Lin's possession is a counterfeit purchased at a high price from which black market big shot. The scene instantly erupted into chaos. You're talking nonsense. I had someone buy this for me at a great expense. Lin Xiaoye screamed, her face instantly turning pale. Whether it's nonsense or not, let Mr. Charles take a look and you'll know. I turned slightly and made a gesture of invitation. The old chairman adjusted his glasses and stepped onto the stage. Just 3 minutes later, he shook his head in disappointment. Not only is it a fake, but the cutting technique on this piece is extremely poorly imitated, and it even uses prohibited chemical dyes. Putting something like this at a charity auction is simply an insult to public welfare. Fu Hanjing's face instantly turned ashen. Hanjing, I didn't know, I was deceived too. Lin Xiaoye slumped into her chair, trying to grab Fu Hanjing's hand. Slap, a loud slap echoed. It wasn't from Fu Hanjing, but from one of the wealthy ladies who had just been praising Lin Xiaoye. Feeling deceived, the most hot-tempered among them directly splashed her champagne onto Lin Xiaoye's face. Using fakes to deceive for reputation, the Fu family's standards are truly sinking lower and lower. Fu Hanjing stood at the center of the storm, looking at the disheveled Lin Xiaoye. Then turning his gaze toward me, who was watching coldly from a distance. In that moment, the business reputation and family dignity he had painstakingly built crumbled completely before this set of fake diamonds. Shen Ruobing, you knew all along. Fu Hanjing pushed through the crowd and walked up to me, his voice hoarse and strained. I merely provided her with a stage to showcase her ambition. How she performs is entirely up to her. I smoothed my skirt and glanced at Su Manny. Let's go. The air here is tainted by cheap dyes. Stepping out of the banquet hall, I looked up at the starry sky. Lin Xiaoye is finished. The last shred of guilt and pity Fu Hanjing held for her has been completely erased by that 30 million joke, but I know this isn't enough. Fu Hanjing has yet to taste the bitterness of falling from the clouds into the mud, abandoned by everyone. Ruobing, Jiu Yang was waiting by the car and opened the door for me. Next. Are we going to uncover that secret from 3 years ago? I got into the car, my gaze icy cold. It's time. What he owes me isn't just my dignity, but a life. The rain on the winding mountain road grew heavier and heavier. The windshield wipers swung frantically, yet still couldn't clear the mist from the windows. I had originally gone to the sanatorium to visit my grandmother, but on the way back, halfway up the mountain, I was intercepted by 3 black sedans. Fu Hanjing pushed open the car door and rushed out. He didn't hold an umbrella, and his expensive cashmere coat was instantly soaked through by the rain, clinging tightly to his once arrogant back. Shen Ruobing, get out of the car. He pounded hard on my car window, something seeping from between his fingers, whether it was rainwater or blood. I couldn't tell. Tell me, what exactly did you hide from me 3 years ago in Sweden? I sat in the temperature-controlled, comfortable car, watching coldly as he screamed like a madman in the rain. Ji Yang was about to get out and stop him, but I reached out and pressed down on Ji Yang's wrist. Let him go crazy. Some debts really should be settled face to face. I pushed open the car door, and the icy rain instantly drenched me from head to toe. Fu Hanjing grabbed my shoulder with a force so strong it almost crushed my bones. Why did that psychologist Chen Yuan contact me? Why did he say you had a year-long record of severe depression treatment, and that torn-up surgery form? Mr. Fu, isn't it a bit too late to start playing the role of a devoted husband now? I wiped the rain from my face, forcing a sarcastic smile. 3 years ago, when you were in Sweden negotiating that billion-dollar merger, Lin Xiaoye sent you a photo of her hospitalized with a fever. That very night, you abandoned me while I was hemorrhaging heavily and flew back to China overnight. Fu Hanjing's body stiffened abruptly, his eyes instantly bloodshot. Hemorrhaging? You clearly told me at the time that you were just resting in the hotel because you caught a chill. If I hadn't said that, would you have stayed? I pressed forward step by step, my voice sounding particularly piercing through the curtain of rain. That night, I lay alone in the cold emergency room in Stockholm. The nurse asked me where my family was, and I said they were busy saving his soulmate. Fu Hanjing, while that child was turning into a pool of blood and slipping away, you were feeding Lin Xiaoye porridge, weren't you? The child. Fu Hanjing's face instantly turned as pale as paper. He staggered backward, his back hitting the cold railing. Are you saying, we once had a child? Don't use the word we, you don't deserve it. I pulled out a stack of papers from my bag, carefully preserved in plastic sleeves. They were the original medical records Dr. Chen Yuan had helped me keep. Because of the improper handling of that miscarriage, and your subsequent emotional neglect, I developed severe post-traumatic stress disorder. To preserve the last shred of the Shen family's dignity, I hid it from everyone and underwent electroconvulsive therapy and medication. And you thought I had become cold, dull, and unfeeling, so you turned to seek comfort in someone full of spirit like Lin Xiaoye. Fu Hanjing's hands trembled as he took the medical records. Each page felt like a red-hot branding iron. They detailed how I suffered from insomnia night after night, how I engaged in self-harm, and how I called out his name again and again in the midst of auditory hallucinations, only to receive no response. I don't know, Ruobing, I really don't know, he choked up, his tall frame curling into a ball in the heavy rain. The man who was always so shrewd and calculating in the business world now cried like a child who had lost everything. Of course you don't know, because you only care about yourself, your Fu empire, and that plaything who provides you with emotional comfort. I watched coldly as he knelt in the mud. That's exactly why I want a divorce. I'm not just leaving you, I'm also taking back every single price I paid for that child who died, at that moment. From another car that had been parked behind us all along, Dr. Chen Yuan stepped out, holding an umbrella. Mr. Fu, as MS, Shen's former attending physician, I think it's necessary to remind you. Chen Yuan's voice was steady yet cruel. After that accident, MS, Shen's endometrium was severely damaged. It will be very difficult for her to have children again in this lifetime, and all of this happened because you, for the sake of a lie, delayed her best chance for rescue back then. Fu Hanjing suddenly looked up, his gaze filled with desperate resolve. Ruobing, I'll give you my life, I'll give you anything you want, as long as you come back. Okay, I want your Fu Corporation, I want everyone in your Fu family to pay for my unborn child. I bent down, leaning close to his ear, my tone so gentle it was chilling. Fu Hanjing, this is just the beginning. The family honor you value most, the heir status you're so proud of, I will crush them all, one by one, with my own hands. I straightened up and got back into the car. Drive. Through the rearview mirror, I saw Fu Hanjing kneeling on the rain-soaked road, clutching the medical records tightly in his hands, his cries drowned out by the thunder. At that moment, the rotting flesh in my heart named Fu Hanjing was finally carved out by my own hands, though it bled profusely. The relief was indescribable. The Fu family ancestral hall, a place that carried the century-old glory and traditions of the Fu clan, with its blue bricks and dark tiles, the air thick with sandalwood incense, it should have been solemn and dignified. But at this moment, tension hung heavy in the air. Old Madame Fu sat upright in the master's chair, her dragon-headed cane striking the ground with a heavy, dull thud, thump, thump. The hall was filled with relatives from the Fu family, especially second uncle Fu Jianda, who was flipping through the financial reports with a sinister expression, his eyes occasionally darting toward the main entrance. When I pushed the door open and stepped inside, all eyes instantly converged on me, carrying a cold, judgmental gaze. Shun Ruobing, how dare you show your face here? Madame Fu's voice was sharp, her aged face trembling with anger. Because of you, Han Zheng is now in a daze, even daring to skip the company's board meeting. What kind of sorcery have you cast on him, and now you want to take Galaxy Capital to threaten the Fu family? I wasn't intimidated by this display. Instead, I walked leisurely to the center of the ancestral hall, sat down in an empty rosewood chair, and even smoothed out the wrinkles on my cheongsam. Madam, you shouldn't speak carelessly. I looked up, my gaze clear. Galaxy Capital is rightfully mine. As for Fu Hanjing, he's probably busy mourning the child he personally killed in the rain right now, too busy to listen to your lecture. You, the old lady was so angry she was speechless, her dragon-headed cane trembling as she pointed at me. Nonsense, you, a fallen woman from the Shun family, marrying into our Fu family was already reaching above your station. Now, not only do you show no gratitude, but you even collude with outsiders against your own family. You are nothing but a curse on the Fu family. One of the family, I sneered, turning to look at second uncle Fu Jianda, who had been sitting silently on the left. Second uncle, do you think I'm one of the family? Fu Jianda gave a hollow laugh, his smile not reaching his eyes. Ruobing, as your second uncle, I advise you, a woman doesn't need so much money, it only invites trouble. Hand over your shares, return to the old mansion to reflect on your mistakes with the old lady, and the Fu family can still ensure you a lifetime of prosperity. Guarantee me a lifetime of wealth and honor. I pulled a stack of photos and an audit report from my small bag, laying them out one by one on the altar in front of everyone. On it were the ancestral tablets of the Fu family, which now seemed particularly ironic. Uncle, before you say that, perhaps you should first explain why, over the past 3 years, the 600 million yuan in poverty alleviation funds allocated by the Fu Group to the Northwest Development Zone ended up being transferred to your private account in the Cayman Islands, and that multi-million-dollar mansion your extravagant mistress lives in abroad. The reimbursement form listed it as office supplies. The entire room erupted in an uproar. Fu Jianda's face instantly turned from sinister to deathly pale. He slammed the table and stood up abruptly, trying to rush over and snatch the documents. You crazy woman, how dare you slander me? Someone, get her out of here. Let's see who dares to lay a hand on her. Ji Yu Yang stormed in with 4 stern-faced bodyguards dressed in black suits. In their hands were not only legal documents but also a freshly issued asset freeze order. Old madam, you keep calling me a jinx. I stood up and looked directly at the woman who had held the power of life and death over the Fu family for half a century. But your most trusted son is hollowing out the very foundation of the Fu family, bit by bit. If I hadn't secretly withheld some critical data 3 years ago, the Fu Corporation would have already been sold to a competitor by second uncle. Jianda, is what she said true? The old lady turned her head, her gaze sharp as a knife. Mom, don't listen to her sowing discord, it's all fabricated by her. Fu Jianda, cornered like a dog, seeing the truth exposed, actually showed a fierce glint in his eyes and raised his hand to slap my face. Today, I'll clean up the Fu family. Before his hand could even touch a strand of my hair, it was firmly seized by the bodyguard beside me. Immediately after, a clear police siren sounded outside the old mansion. Mr. Fu Jianda, you are suspected of job-related embezzlement and misappropriation of public funds. Please come with us. Several uniformed officers strode into the ancestral hall. Fu Jianda collapsed to his knees, looking both ridiculous and pitiful before the rows of ancestral tablets. The old lady slumped in her chair, as if she had aged 10 years in an instant. She looked at me, a flicker of fear finally appearing in her eyes. Shun Ruobing, what exactly do you want? The Fu family has already been torn apart by you. Are you still not satisfied? What I want is simple, I said, walking up to the old lady and leaning down. My voice as light as a whisper yet striking like thunder with every word. I want to reclaim the 10% of the Fu family's original shares that my mother brought into the Shen family as part of her dowry back then. And, I want you to admit with your own mouth that, in order to secure the marriage alliance, you tacitly allowed Lin Xiaoye to provoke me and even tamper with my tonic medicine. This is a debt the Fu family owes me. The old lady's pupils suddenly contracted. She thought those old matters had long since vanished with the wind, never expecting that I would strike back at this most critical moment, sign this share transfer agreement, and I guarantee Fu Corporation won't go bankrupt this year. I handed the pen to her. Otherwise, news of Fu Gender's imprisonment will spread throughout the financial world tomorrow, and Fu Corporation's stock will plummet so low you won't even be able to afford to maintain your ancestral graves. The old lady's hand trembled as she finally signed her name on the document. As I walked out of the ancestral hall, the setting sun stretched my shadow long. Fu Hanjing was waiting at the door at some point. He looked haggard, his eyes bloodshot as he stared at me. Ruorbing, is it enough? The Fu family has already paid the price. Second uncle has been arrested. Grandma has fallen ill. Can you stop now? I stopped in my tracks, glanced back at the suffocatingly heavy century-old mansion. Then looked at the man I once thought I would spend my life with, Fu Hanjing. This isn't a price, it's returning what rightfully belongs to its owner. I smiled faintly, waving the signed transfer document in front of him. What belongs to the Shen family, I've taken back. As for the Fu family, that's your battlefield, not mine. Don't follow me. Between us, there isn't even a lingering warmth left. I strode down the stone steps, the wind lifting the ends of my hair. The sandalwood incense in the ancestral hall still lingered, but I knew that from this moment on, I would never have to burn incense and pray for anyone again. I am my own god. At the press conference, the flashlights formed a dense forest of white light, and the sound of shutters clicking rose and fell like a drumbeat urging the arrival of judgment. This is the grand hall of a top-tier hotel in the capital, yet it has now become the focal point of a live broadcast across the entire internet. Just an hour ago, Lin Xiaoye posted a tearful video on social media, accusing me, as the former Mrs. Fu, of using capital and power to blacklist her across the entire industry. She even hinted that my alleged affair with Jiyu Yang during my marriage was the reason her true love with Fu Hanjing was obstructed. Mr. Shen, how do you respond to Ms. Lin's accusation that you used investment banking resources for retaliation? Rumors suggest that the equity in your hands was obtained illegally by framing the second uncle of the Fu family. Is this true? The reporter's questions were as sharp as knives, eager to pierce straight through my throat. I sat at the center of the press conference table, calmly adjusting the microphone. Beside me, Jiyu Yang was intently reviewing legal documents, looking poised and ready for action. Everyone, since you're all so interested in the truth, let's break it down piece by piece. I smiled faintly and turned my gaze toward Lin Xiaoye, who was hiding in a corner of the room, looking utterly confident of her victory. Today, she had deliberately worn a plain white dress, her eyes slightly red, as if she had endured great suffering. First, regarding Miss Lin's so-called true love, I pressed the page-turner, and a series of massive surveillance screenshots and bank transaction records suddenly appeared on the large screen. During her tenure as Secretary Fu, Miss Lin met with the financial director of our competitor, Zhao Group, 4 times at a private club, and in her so-called pure love story, she seems to have conveniently omitted a fiancé who helped her launder money overseas. The room erupted in an uproar. Lin Xiaoye's face instantly turned from pale to ashen, and she abruptly stood up, shouting, "That's fake, you forged it. Whether it's forged or not, the police will determine that." My voice was cold and clear as I continued to the next slide. This is the genuine academic record of Miss Lin Xiaoye. The so-called Stanford graduate actually only has a completion certificate from a community college in California after 3 months of attendance. The degree certificate she submitted when joining Fu Corporation bears a serial number that belongs to a deceased international student. Miss Lin, the crime of forging documents cannot be offset by crying. The reporters below shifted their focus, their cameras frantically aimed at Lin Xiaoye, who had slumped back into her chair. As for the marital infidelity that everyone is concerned about, I paused, my gaze turning cold. I have also prepared a gift. Brother Wang, I'll trouble you with this. At the back of the venue, Brother Wang, known as the top paparazzo in the capital, stood up, holding a USB drive in his hand. He spoke in a mocking tone. Fellow colleagues, I'd like to join in the fun. This is what I captured: records of Miss Lin entering and exiting the Hilton Hotel with a mysterious man while Mr. Fu was away on a business trip. The timing coincides exactly with the day she posted on Weibo, claiming she was lonely at home, missing Mr. Fu. On the large screen, the image was so clear that even the hickey on Lin Xiaoya's neck was visible. No, that's not me. Han Zheng, you have to believe me, Lin Xiaoya screamed, looking toward the front row, following her gaze. I saw Fu Hanjing sitting there. He was dressed in a pure black suit today, looking noticeably thinner, his once cold and proud eyes now filled with shattered disillusionment. He didn't spare Lin Xiaoya a single glance, instead fixing his gaze intently on me, standing confidently on the stage. Lin Xiaoya, I have already submitted all this evidence to the judicial authorities. I closed my laptop, stood up, and looked down at her from above. Did you think you could tarnish the reputation of a woman dedicated to her career in the internet age with just a few lies and tears? You've underestimated the intelligence of the public, and you've underestimated Shen Ruobing. Mr. Shen, what about your past with Mr. Fu? A reporter cautiously inquired. Past, I chuckled lightly, my gaze frank and open. The past was me, Shen Ruobing, being blind and soft-hearted, trying to find a sense of belonging in a heartless wealthy family. But now, I prefer hearing my opponents beg for mercy in the business world. The collapse of the Fu family was due to internal decay. I was merely the gardener who dug out the rotten roots. Just as the press conference was nearing its end, Fu Hanjing suddenly stood up, ignoring all the cameras around him. He walked through the press seats and straight to the front of the stage, his voice so hoarse it was almost inaudible. Ruobing, if I give you my life, can I earn one proper glance from you? The scene was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. I looked at this man who once controlled my joys and sorrows, yet my heart felt not a single ripple, even finding it somewhat absurd. Fu Hanjing, your life is your own. To me, its value is less than the few percentage points Fu Corporation's stock price dropped today. I picked up my bag and walked toward the backstage under the escort of bodyguards. Miss Lin, remember to prepare the bail in advance, but before that, Fu Corporation's legal department will likely sue you for embezzlement. I wish you a happy true love life in prison. I walked away without looking back, leaving behind Lin Xiaoya's desperate cries and the sound of Fu Hanjing collapsing in despair. Feeling good, Ji Yang handed me a bottle of water backstage. This is just a victory in the court of public opinion. I gazed at the blue sky outside the window, my eyes deep and thoughtful. The real takeover has only just begun. The Fu family's empire is mine for the taking. In the exchange hall, the alternating red and green numbers flickered like an out-of-control pulse. Wildly jumping, Fu Group's stock price gapped down at the open, and within less than half an hour, it had already broken through its historical psychological support level. This day would later be referred to in financial circles as Fu's Day of Suffering. Just 24 hours after Lin Xiaoya was taken away by the police for investigation, the financial loopholes that had accumulated within Fu Group for years began to collapse like a row of dominoes, one after another. I sat in the highest-tier VIP trading room of the exchange, facing 6 massive display screens. Ji Yang was directing over a dozen top traders, the rapid clatter of keyboards echoing like machine gun fire on a battlefield. Mr. Shun. The major shareholders of Fu Corporation are starting to get restless. Ji Yang stared at the screen, a cold smile playing at the corner of his mouth. They're frantically selling off. Fu Hanjing is still trying to contact banks to inject liquidity, but he forgot that the bank presidents on this entire street all received risk warning letters from Paulari's investment bank last night. I held a glass of red wine, gently swirling the dark red liquid as I watched the curve representing Fu Corporation's lifeline plummet on the screen. Fu Hanjing is too arrogant. He thinks that as long as he's around, Fu Corporation will remain, but he forgot that capital has no emotions, it only bows to the strong. I took a sip of wine, my gaze as cold as ice. Let's begin. First wave of buying. Understood. Ji Yang decisively gave the order. Build positions in batches. Absorbing all the shares from retail investors and small to medium shareholders. At that moment, The door of the trading room was violently pushed open. Fu Hanjing rushed in, his tie askew, his suit jacket nowhere to be seen, and the collar of his shirt wide open. He exuded a desperate, frantic energy. Behind him were two security guards trying to stop him, whom I waved off to step back. Shun Ruobing, stop this. Fu Hanjing strode up to me, his hands gripping the edge of my desk tightly. His voice hoarse and strained. You've already won. Lin Xiaoye is ruined, second uncle is in prison, and the Fu family's reputation is bankrupt. Are you trying to completely destroy the Fu family by buying up shares on such a massive scale now? I set down my wine glass, slowly and elegantly swiveling my chair to face him. Destroy the Fu family. President Fu, you really know how to joke. I'm saving the Fu family. If I don't step in, the Fu Corporation would be nothing but worthless trash. I'm using real money to buy your crumbling dignity. That is the life's work of 3 generations of the Fu family. He roared, his eyes red. That was also 3 years of my youth, Shun Ruobing, and the life of my unborn child. I suddenly stood up, my voice louder and colder than his. Fu Hanjing, when you repeatedly drained the foundation of the Fu Group for Lin Xiaoye's ambitions, why didn't you think of it as life's work? When you watched me being humiliated by your grandmother and stood by indifferently, why didn't you think of it as life's work? Fu Hanjing froze. The towering rage in him was completely extinguished by guilt and fear the moment it met my icy gaze. Report, President Shun, there's an emergency. A trader suddenly exclaimed. I turned to look, and on the screen, a massive amount of mysterious funds appeared, frantically buying at high prices in an attempt to drive up the stock price of the Fu family's company. Who is it? I frowned. It's the remnants of the Zhao Group, and also, that so-called fiancé behind Lin Xiaoye, Mark, a student of the international financial tycoon Shorosh. Ji Yu Yang quickly traced the source of the funds. Before she was captured, Lin Xiaoye sold all of Fu Corporation's core business secrets and defensive strategies to them. They aren't saving Fu Corporation. They're shorting it and then going long, trying to completely dismantle and sell off Fu Corporation. Fu Hanjing stared at the data on the screen, his face instantly turning pale. That data is the lifeblood of the Fu Corporation. How dare Lin Xiaoye? What is there that she wouldn't dare? A woman who would forge her academic credentials and sell her body to climb the ladder. Do you expect loyalty from her? I sneered, quickly returning to my seat. Ji Yu Yang, initiate the Dragon Slayer plan. Since they want to play, I'll show them what a true dimensional reduction strike really means. But President Shun, if we do this, we'll need to invest 80% of Extreme Point Investment Bank's cash reserves. What if? Ji Yu Yang expressed some concern. There is no what if. I stared intently at the numbers scrolling across the screen, my fingers swiftly entering a string of commands. I want Mark to understand that on Chinese soil, even barbarians have to kneel and crawl. The next hour was a confrontation fierce enough to be recorded in the annals of financial history. Mark used false information to create panic, while I leveraged the underlying assets of Galaxy Capital to launch a precise counterattack. Every second, billions of funds evaporated into thin air. Fu Hanjing stood behind me, watching as I calmly allocated funds, divided the battlefield, and guided retail investors through the public opinion war. His expression gradually shifted from shock to utter defeat. He finally realized that the wife who had once been as gentle as water in his arms possessed a dominance in the business battlefield far beyond his own. Penetrated, Ji Yu Yang exclaimed excitedly, punching the air. On the screen, Mark's funding chain broke, and Fu Corporation's stock price, after a heart-stopping deep V-shaped rebound, steadily settled at the price I had preset. Mr. Shun, our shareholding ratio has now reached 51%. Ji Yu Yang turned his head, his gaze intense. Legally speaking, you are now the absolute controlling shareholder of the Fu Group. No, the Shun Group. I let out a long sigh and leaned back in my chair. Fu Hanjing seemed to have all his strength drained in an instant. He slumped onto the sofa, gazing at the corporate name on the large screen, now bearing a changed legal prefix. A bitter smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. Shun Ruobing, you really did it. Not only did you get a divorce, but you also divorced me from the Fu family. Mr. Fu, don't be so pessimistic. I stood up, looking down at him from above. I just checked in order to please Mark. Lin Xiaoye not only sold the information but also mortgaged several properties under your personal name. In other words, right now, aside from that designer suit you're wearing, you truly have nothing left. Fu Hanjing chuckled softly, tears slipping from the corners of his eyes. Is this retribution, Ruobing? If I go to prison now, will you come to see me? Prison is too lenient for you. Fu Hanjing, I walked to the window, gazing at the bustling street outside. I want you to live, to watch me govern this empire 1,000, 10,000 times better than you ever did. I want you to live as an ordinary worker, looking up at this building every day, yet never able to step through its doors. I turned around and instructed Jiyu Yang, call the police. Lin Xiaoye and Mark are suspected of insider trading and stealing commercial secrets. The solid evidence has already been sent to the Economic Crime Investigation Division. Fu Hanjing closed his eyes and, under the escort of his bodyguards, staggered out of the trading room. The setting sun shone into the room, and as I looked at my determined eyes and radiant self in the mirror, I whispered softly, Shun Ruobing, congratulations on your rebirth, the headquarters building of the Fu Group. Once a symbol of power in the capital, now reflected a nearly ruthless golden-red hue in the evening light through its massive glass curtain walls. Outside the main gate, a crowd of media reporters armed with cameras and microphones had gathered. Security guards had set up barricades, keeping those eager to uncover the truth behind the downfall of the wealthy family at a distance of several meters. Just moments ago, court officials and the economic investigation team had left one after another, taking with them the final batch of physical evidence related to Lin Xiaoye and Mark's insider trading. I stood inside the revolving door, while Jiyu Yang quietly confirmed the final handover documents with me. Ruobing, Fu Hanjing has been waiting outside for 2 hours, Jiyu Yang said. Glancing at the lonely figure beyond the floor-to-ceiling window, he mortgaged all his private properties and cars to the bank to cover the losses left by Lin Xiaoye. Now, he really has nothing left but the suit he's wearing. I adjusted my cuffs and pushed open the heavy glass door. The late autumn evening wind carried a biting chill, tousling my long hair. Fu Hanjing stood at the foot of the steps, the setting sun stretching his shadow long and thin, making him appear both pitiful and absurd. He was once a business prodigy who traveled with motorcades and whose every move could sway the stock market, but now, his expensive leather shoes were covered in dust, and a stubble of blue-black beard shadowed his chin. CEO Shun is out. The reporters erupted into chaos, the sound of camera shutters instantly exploding. Fu Hanjing stumbled amidst the jostling crowd, yet his eyes remained fixed on my face. He pushed past the blocking security guards, rushing to a spot just 3 steps away from me, only to be stopped by 2 tall bodyguards. Ruobing, CEO Shun, he corrected himself, his voice hoarse as if scraped over sandpaper. I'm not here to beg you to remarry me, I want to return this to you. His hand trembling, he pulled a dark red velvet box from his pocket. It was an emerald ring that the Shun family had given as part of my dowry when we got married, 3 years ago. To support his cash flow during the early stages of his startup, I secretly took it to a pawn shop behind the Shun family's back. Later, when he became successful, he never mentioned the ring again. I went to 3 different pawn shops before I managed to redeem it, he said with a bitter smile, his eyes dull and lifeless. This belongs to the Shun family, I don't deserve to keep it, and, here are my signed resignation letter and equity relinquishment statement. The Fu Corporation, I'll leave it to you from now on. I took the box and opened it. The emerald glimmered faintly in the evening light, but it no longer reflected the warmth of those days. Fu Hanjing, do you think returning a ring can make up for a life? I casually handed the box to my assistant beside me, my tone flat and devoid of any emotion. These documents will be verified by Jiyu Yang. As for you, since you've already resigned, this building is no longer welcome to you. Ruobing, can you give me another chance, even if it's just being an assistant by your side, or the lowest level salesperson? He humbly bent down, and under the watchful eyes of everyone, the once arrogant CEO seemed on the verge of kneeling. I've realized that without you, I can't even hold on to the Fu Group, and I've forgotten how to live. Just then, several luxury cars pulled over by the roadside. The second-generation heirs who once followed Fu Hanjing with timid obedience all got out of the cars. But this time, they walked straight toward me. President Shun, everyone is waiting for you to preside over tonight's celebration banquet. Mr. Shun, here is the bid proposal for the South City Development Zone next quarter. Please take a look. These once arrogant heirs, whom Fu Hanjing had looked down upon and dismissed as mere wastrels at banquets, now gazed with reverence at the true power, at me, Shen Ruobing. They couldn't even spare a glance for the disheveled man at the foot of the stairs. Mr. Fu, did you hear that? I descended the final step and stood before him, meeting his eyes directly. The world moves fast. No one is so indispensable that life can't go on without them. You think you can't live without me only because you've lost all your chips, and it's created an illusion you call deep affection. I don't accept such cheap emotions, Shen Ruobing, he suddenly shouted, tears streaming down his face. Are you really this heartless? 3 years of marriage, do you not care about that at all? Marital affection, I sneered, curling the corner of my lips as I leaned close to his ear. My voice so low only he could hear. Fu Hanjing, when you left me struggling alone on the operating table just to celebrate Lin Xiaoye's birthday, when you forced me to take those so-called tonics that harmed my body just to preserve the Fu family's dignity, when you brought her to the family banquet and humiliated me in front of everyone, did you ever consider affection? He was as if struck by lightning, frozen in place, his mouth agape but unable to utter a single sound. Now, I'm off to the victory celebration. I straightened up, looked toward the flashing lights, and flashed a flawless professional smile. Mr. Fu, if you can't afford the bus fare, turn left at the intersection, there's a scrap collector. That suit of yours might still fetch you a couple of loaves of bread. I gracefully bypassed him and got into the top-tier sedan that belonged to the executive chairman. The car window slowly rose, cutting off the noise from outside, through the rearview mirror. I saw Fu Hanjing completely collapse on the ground in the fading glow of the sunset, his face buried in his hands, his shoulders trembling violently. Mr. Shen, where to next? The driver asked respectfully. To the peak. The view there is beautiful. I closed my eyes, leaning back against the expensive leather seat, listening to the steady hum of the engine. Fu Hanjing, this is the end I have prepared for you, to let you live, to let you watch with clear eyes as I step over your ruins. One step at a time, toward a peak you will never be able to reach. The rooftop garden of the Fu building was surrounded by dazzling starlight and a top-tier champagne tower tonight. This is the renaming ceremony of the Shen Group, formerly the Fu Group, after its restructuring. As well as the launch event for the Ruobing Women's Entrepreneurship Foundation, over half of the business leaders in the capital have gathered here, and tonight's protagonist is no longer anyone's wife, but rather, President Shen. I wore a pale purple dress hand-sewn with diamond dust, moving through the crowd as elegantly as a streak of aurora. Mr. Shen, congratulations. In just half a year, Shen Group's overseas business has doubled. Ruobing. I've seen the first batch of female entrepreneurs supported by your foundation. Your vision is sharp, truly impressive. I nodded with a smile, effortlessly handling each person's greetings. Under my management, the company has shed the bloat and decay of its former family-run structure, transforming into a precise and highly efficient business machine. Halfway through the cocktail party, the lively atmosphere suddenly shifted with a subtle ripple, following the crowd's gaze. I looked toward the entrance. Fu Hanjing had arrived. He had no invitation and was stopped at the door by security. He was wearing an old suit, washed to a faded color, a ready-made garment he had once looked down on the most. But now, on his gaunt frame, it seemed almost too loose. In his hand, he clutched a crumpled newspaper, on which the news of my foundation's launch was prominently displayed. Let him in. I raised my hand slightly, my voice calm. Fu Hanjing walked toward me with heavy steps, each one seeming to span a century. Amidst this dazzlingly glamorous banquet, he stood out like a sore thumb, like a ghost from a bygone era. Ruobing, I'm not here to cause trouble. He looked at me, his eyes no longer holding the cool arrogance they once did, replaced instead by a nearly humble sincerity. I heard you're starting a women's foundation. I sold the last of my remaining assets, the few acres of ancestral tea fields back in my hometown. Here's the check. It's not much, but I thought, this is the only compensation I can offer for that mistake. He handed over a check, the amount on which, for me now, was no more than the cost of an afternoon tea. I took that piece of paper, flicked it lightly with my fingertips, and the check drifted into the decorative pool beside us. Mr. Fu, the foundation accepts support from all sectors of society, not the self-redemption of sinners, I said, raising my champagne glass, my tone calm. I won't accept your compensation, because in my world, you've already been completely erased. Just then, the screen suddenly switched to a new image. That was the latest news from the prison. Lin Xiaoye was sentenced to 15 years in prison for embezzling a huge amount of public funds, committing commercial espionage, and forging documents. Mark was repatriated to his home country to face life imprisonment for transnational financial fraud. On the screen, Lin Xiaoye had cut her hair short. Her face haggard, as she screamed Fu Hanjing's name at the camera with all her might. Fu Hanjing watched the large screen, his body trembling slightly. He finally understood that the innocence he had once cherished and protected was nothing but a venomous snake, while the genuine gold he had casually discarded like worn-out shoes had now become a god he could no longer reach. Ruobing, can I ask one last question? Fu Hanjing suddenly took out a small box from his pocket, the ring he had custom-made for me at an auction, the only memento he had kept over the past 6 months. If I hadn't taken Lin Xiaoye to the family banquet back then, if I had stayed in Stockholm that night, would we still have ended up like this? He knelt on one knee, in this territory he once ruled, before all the media and celebrities, humbling himself to the dust. The entire hall fell into a dead silence. With everyone waiting for my response, I glanced down at the exquisite ring box, then looked into his bloodshot eyes. Then, I took the ring and, amid the gasps of the crowd, casually tossed it to the top of the champagne tower made of hundreds of stacked glasses. The ring slid down the golden stream of champagne, tumbling all the way until it sank into the dregs at the very bottom. Fu Hanjing, there are no IFS in this world. I leaned down, giving him one last, most brilliant smile. Even if you had stayed that night, my awakening was only a matter of time. Your mistake was thinking that a woman's value needed to be defined by you, and the truth has proven that without you, I can walk faster and stand taller. I turned around, facing all the cameras and guests, my voice echoing throughout the top floor. Tonight, the Ruobing Women's Entrepreneurship Foundation is officially established. Our mission is to make every woman trapped in hardship understand that your marriage is not your destiny, your career is your true foundation. From now on, we will not depend on others, nor blindly follow. We will carve out our own kingdom in this concrete jungle with our own hands. The applause thundered, lasting for a long time. Amidst the tidal wave of applause, I watched as Fu Hanjing slumped to the ground in despair, then was politely but firmly escorted out of the venue by security. The moment his lonely figure disappeared behind the elevator doors, I felt the last shackle deep within my soul shatter completely. I raised my glass, offering a gentle toast to the myriad lights of the city outside the window, and to the once humble version of myself. The stars and the vast sea lay before me, and I, in the prime of my youth, was ready to embrace them.